No, we haven't. At the government level, there's been no consideration of attaching a grant fund to crowdsourced funding programs. But it is a good idea to use grant funds as a leverage to get private sector funding, particularly through crowdsourcing. But it hasn't been considered at the highest level in the ACT government.
So I've actually been successfully achieved 2 crowdfunding projects, one of which didn't actually achieve its crowdfunding objective. However, the government saw value in contributing a top-up to actually achieve that to get the rest of the funds. So in that program's example, they were looking for $55,000, they got to $50,000, and they only had about 8 hours to get the additional $5,000. The government thought it was value for money to contribute $5,000 to get the additional $50,000, which is a 10-to-1 ratio. So in government terms, it's a win. The other one was that if they actually gained the funding, which they achieved, they would then match the funding in that instance. So if they actually got the $20,000, they would then give you an additional $20,000 in match funds, so long as they achieved the objective. And I just wonder whether those things would be seriously considered by the government.
I'd be interested in seeing what the parameters of the program were and how it was processed, particularly if you're talking about we've got 8 hours to go and we need to find $5,000. I'd like to see what that process looks like.
You can see the benefit of that from a government perspective.
Oh yeah, but
the benefits to a local community in regards to employment, a project being developed, you know, and the achievable outcomes based on the audience that have already contributed the investment, right? So they already see that there's actually value there, right? And that's outside of a panel, right? I think that's something.
Yeah, Stella, I think that's obviously a policy conversation that. Yeah.
That's right, but one thing just to caveat crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is great, and I think it's a wonderful new investment form on the investment landscape. But it's not for everybody. Remembering that you can give away an awful lot of IP. If you've crowdfunded and you then want to go and get a patent, you've blown your chances. So it's something to be very careful of because it's out there in the public domain. And there are other sort of legal concerns that are just starting to crop up at the moment around crowdfunding. So it's a great source. We've had Josh Young from Triple Think very successfully raise money. 75,000. He was well and truly oversubscribed for his venture, and there's some great stories, and it certainly is something you should be considering. But in that consideration, get some decent advice, because if you want to protect IP, you might find you end up shooting yourself in the foot.
I concur with that.
Sorry, can we just, we'll have, I think we should continue this chat later. There's a question here at front, sorry.
Oh, my question is also about IP, actually. It's an issue of trust. If I have an idea that I would like to put forward, and I want to talk to Lighthouse or ATP or Camp Angels, any of these groups, there's the issue of how much I reveal and how much I would trust the mentors that you would put up to talk about my ideas, etc. So how does that all sort of work out, or has worked out to date?
Yep. Can you hear me? Yes. It is a matter of trust, and you have to trust us, because we're not in the business of stealing your business. Because I earn a salary. I'm in the business of giving you a grant or getting you to make you successful. That's what I'm employed to do. Anyone on the panel here, I think, would be in exactly the same position. If you don't, and I have clients like this, who won't tell us. We'll get to you know, sort of question 39 out of 40 questions, and we'll say something about the IP. And that's where it will stall, and they won't submit an application, or they'll forego that rather than give away their IP. Now, it is to their detriment. I know of hand on heart, I know of no instance where a government entity has spilled an IP situation. The IP laws in Australia are very clear, and as far as I'm concerned, if you've got an idea, you believe in it, I would go for it with people like us, because that's what we're here to do.
Government is bound by confidentiality on those sorts of things. So if you provide something to the ACT government or the Commonwealth government, they are bound by that confidentiality. In terms of Capital Angels or an accelerated program, obviously in an accelerated program you are getting a lot of IP yourself from the program. For Capital Angels, it's tried, I mean, it's common practice to sign a non-disclosure agreement before you get into the real nitty-gritty of detail, and that would normally happen, but at a point where there is an interested investor who wants to do due diligence on you, because after all, they're not going to give you their money unless they've done a proper due diligence.
So IP disclosure is a tricky one. In general, people don't care about your technology. The customers don't care, and the investors really don't care. They just care about the outcome. And so if you're able to convey to an investor the problem that you solve, so and the value proposition you provide to a customer, you don't have to disclose what the secret sauce is. Not for a long time. So you can enter into quite deep discussions without disclosing any of the magic. And that's what I'd suggest you do. Certainly at ATP Innovations, with very few exceptions, we don't sign non-disclosure agreements, because we'll see between probably 300 to 400 pitches each a year or new technologies. And if we signed NDAs for that, for all of those, over a period of time, it becomes a nightmare. Once we start engaging with customer or clients to a deeper degree, then we do sign non-disclosure agreements as part of that. And venture capital is the same way. So venture capital won't sign an NDA. And so you'll have to be able to talk about your business concept at a very high level, talking really about the value proposition rather than the magic behind it.
I've noticed throughout this presentation that there hasn't been many examples relating to services. A lot of it's been around technology and products, but not really services.
No, I mean, we might just take that there. We see a lot of
the grants, the programs, they're all...
Oh no, they still relate to services. I mean, Icon has
I'm just saying, in
funded.
this presentation there hasn't been many examples of services.
Well, look, it depends how you look at it, because we look at, I mean, the way that Lighthouse looks at things, there's a lot of things in Canberra are IT enabled, but IT itself is not the product. It's the end, it's the end thing that's the product, and a lot of the things that we see, we actually classify as a service. So it really depends on how you define your business.
There was that app application.
That's actually service.
Which is a service, but it's still technology though.
But if you're talking about just pure consultancies,
yeah,
they will not get funded by this kind of panel, right? But there are other things that can help you grow those sorts of businesses, and that's where Lighthouse comes in. And that the microcredit, for example, we'll fund anything as long as we believe it's a viable business, we will fund it. So you really have to define what your business is, and obviously you need to find the sort of people who will support you. But getting a service through these sorts of activities, possibly maybe not the accelerator, but again, they'd have to look at it. It is definitely much more difficult to get funding for a consultancy of some sort.
Certainly when it comes to the R&D tax incentive, the R&D tax incentive does say new knowledge, be it a new product, service, etc. However, the big however is there has to be a technology, there has to be some technical uncertainty to it, and so therefore it has to be underpinned by some sort of technology. So it's using technology to provide some sort of service. In terms of a lot of companies that I've seen grow, they've actually used their services, the income they earn from their services, to bootstrap their company and their technology, and then move into the technology space. So, and partly, there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, and as pointed out, the microcredit is available. It's not that we don't see, or the economy doesn't see the value in services, but quite often people can start earning income from services far sooner than you can from developing technology and productising it or getting it into the market, and that's part of the reason for it.
Got an example. App technology sort of, I guess, development for the last 2 years, I guess, just sort of spiked, and we're sort of a bit more careful about apps. One successful one that's just gone international is 365 Cups, developed in Wagga Wagga. They received a Commercialisation Australia grant, and now they are they're going gangbusters. It's the same sort of thing as Q Hopper, but with your coffee. So you can be at home and share and think, I've ordered my coffee, I'll go there. What we're interested in is the coffee shops and the services, and it's the end business making money. 365 Cups makes their money out of the coffee shops subscribing to their app, not you, the consumer. You go to your favourite coffee shop who's subscribed to this app, and you order your coffee that way. It's now just gone international, and it's just another amazing, I guess you call it a service. You know, you say tomato.
Yeah, exactly. Take it
You guys have alluded to sort of networking a little bit earlier on, but I'm just interested, if funds aside, are there any services that provide